up guys, welcome back to the Piston Show. I'm Keshi Dillon. Today we have here with us the new MINI Aceman S. Now this is priced at just under 214,000 ringgit, but if you want to go for the full-fledged 4-year warranty together with the service package, it's going to cost you slightly over 220,000 ringgit. In my opinion, it goes up against the likes of the Volvo EX30. But it has its quirkiness, its typical Mini quirkiness. There's a lot of things about this that is quite nice. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the good and bad about the MINI Aceman. I've been driving this for a couple of days and it sort of has grown on me. What has grown on me? I'll tell you shortly. The MINI Aceman S is an all-new model which is placed between the Cooper SE and the Countryman SE. In terms of dimensions, it follows the same sequence as well. Bigger than the Cooper, yet smaller than the Countryman. Despite its size, it still retains Mini's iconic go-kart-like handling, which is something that you will either love or hate. Some may not like that the car feels so edgy with the stiff suspension. I don't mind it though, but not so much with the family in the car. Powering the Aceman S is a front-mounted electric motor which draws power from a 54.2 kWh nickel cobalt manganese battery. This gives the car a WLTP range of 406 km, though I personally saw a real-world range of just under 400 km. In terms of power, the Aceman S offers 218 PS and 330 Nm of torque, which is good for 0 to 100 acceleration time of 7.1 seconds and with a top speed of 170 km per hour. As for charging, the Aceman S takes 11 kW of AC and 95 kilowatts of DC charging. The latter will take just 30 minutes to replenish the battery from 10 to 80%. Now let's start off with the design of the new MINI Aceman. Now you might think that this is a replacement for the Paceman and such, but actually it's not. It's almost a stand-alone model. And the MINI Aceman is only available as an EV, which actually is not a bad thing. And it's very much in line with BMW's sustainability programs and such. And it's very much in line with the Mini design language. Like, I read somewhere that if this was going to be the last ever Mini, it does Mini really well. And I tend to agree. So, gone are the circular, hence oval headlights, and now it's sort of a hexagonal design of sorts. These are the daytime running lights, and it has a very cool welcome light sequence and such. That unfortunately is too much light over here, so but that's something to look out for if you're ever going to be visiting your Mini dealer. Get them to show that to you. It's actually really cool. And then from the side over here, you got to notice the squarish wheel arches, which sort of makes the Aceman feel very much like a crossover. It's not a bad thing. It looks really good. And since we are up ahead here, check out the profile of these tires. These are just a 40 profile tires, very, very slim. And that adds to the overall sporting character of the Aceman, but then there are certain sacrifices that it makes because there's not a lot of rubber between you and the road. So it can be sort of noisy, and the absorption of the rubber as well as the suspension, let's just say it's quite firm. Moving on, the door handles sit flush with the body. That's really nice. The overall silhouette is typically Mini, and you might be forgiven for thinking of it as a Countryman, especially from the side profile of the car. And the back, well, again, typically Mini. A good looking car, and you have these tail lights that are supposed to sort of represent or mimic the British Union Jack. I don't see how, but anyway, again, you get about a 300-litre boot space over here, but no spare wheel. You do get a tire repair kit, and that is the amplifier. This black thing over here, if you're wondering what that is, is the amplifier for the 10-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, which I'll tell you more about inside. Before jumping inside though, I just want to show you one thing. Keep in mind that this is a car that costs about 213 plus thousand or 220 plus thousand depending on the package that you go for. And you need to open your own boot, guys. Own boot. There's no powered tailgate for a car of this price. Nowadays you can have a 90,000 ringgit car that comes with a powered tailgate, but not in a Mini Aceman. This, my friends, is called skimming the market. And what that usually means is that it's a marketing term, right? Is that when a model or product is so new, you can actually water it down and people are going to buy it anyway because of the badge. Keep in mind, you have to open your own tailgate. The interior is what I was telling you about earlier. It offers the typical Mini quirkiness. And it's quite cool if you think about it. And once you start delving deeper, there are some things that, you know, I question why, and certain things actually look really cool. I'm going to start off with the seats. The seats are comfortable. They're powered for both passenger and driver. They come with memory function. And if I'm not mistaken, these are the JCW seats, the John Cooper Works seats. And they're really nice. Not only look good, they're quite comfortable as well. You also get this single armrest over here, which is very important, but it doesn't fold away. So it's always permanently here. And it's more for the driver than for the passenger. So there's no arguing, just to set the record straight. And then you get this storage spot over here, which is very much like the Volvo EX30, except this is quite shallow. The Volvo's one is quite deep, so it's quite usable, and you can, you know, just jump out a lot of things. Like, and this is the seat. This is the key for the Volvo. For the Mini Aceman S. And besides that, you also get this one storage bin over here. And the reason why Mini has sort of created this down here is supposedly to make it easier for the back passengers to just sort of stretch and get whatever they want from here. I guess that sort of makes sense. And coming up here, this is basically all your control switches. This is how you start the car. You just sort of twist this. Now this is turned off, and then this turned on. And this is how you select the gears. Up is neutral, up reverse, park. And this is basically your drive mode selector, which Mini calls experiences. It's your volume knob as well as your on off switch. Very nice, very cool, makes a lot of sense. But then the centrally mounted air conditioning vent is just at the bottom over here, and this does a better job at keeping the screen cool rather than your face. And to adjust the positioning of the air conditioning vent, you use this, which is like the ones on the Volvo. What am I talking about? Which is like the ones on the BMW I series and such. This is also your air conditioning vents. So on a hot day, you have to fight with your front passenger. Anyway, up here is your central infotainment screen. Now this is where all the magic happens. This is how you access all of the car's controls. And it's quite cool. It measures in at over 9 inches. Check out how thin it is. And it comes with OLED technology. So it's crystal clear and such. But the one thing that I've noticed about this system is that sometimes it tends to lag. You know, when you want to connect your smartphone, or when you want to quickly just browse get to different menus and such as, like now is fine, but there are certain times when it will just sort of lag. Oh, look at that, you see? So that's not too bad lah, but yesterday it was just annoying me, like now. Anyway, the design of this changes according to the experience button. So right now I'm in go-kart mode, which I'll explain about later. And this is a go-kart mode. And this is your core mode. So this changes color as well. And see how it changes colors and such. And then if you go down to green mode, this is basically your efficiency mode. And when you drive, this thing flaps its wings. And if you're driving too fast and your consumption is high, this changes into a sprinting cat to represent high energy consumption. In this mode, you also get a bonus range of 75.5 kilometers. Anyway, from green, you can go to personal. This lets you personalize how you want this to look. This is very cool. And this vivid makes all these funky sounds in typical Mini fashion. And then you go down further, and this is timeless. It's very cool. It's very elegant. This is how the speedometer of the first or second, third generation Minis used to look like. If you remember, they have always been centrally mounted. And this is a balance. So this to give you an in-depth look of how and what this does. This is the compass if you want to go adventures and such. And so you get the gist. I'm going to put it into timeless because it's so cool. Anyway, if you're wondering how the speedometer looks like in other modes, let me show you. So this is on Vivid, and you can do this, and this is how the speedometer looks like. But if you really want a sporty touch, you go straight up to go-kart, and this is how it looks like. Very sporty, very garang, the overall design of the infotainment screen. Anyway, besides all of that, the overall interior feels comfortable, it feels spacious, it feels very airy. The 10-speaker Harman Kardon sound system is really cool. This fabric touch, and then there's a tad bit of leather over here. And then there's also a bit of fabric over here, which I'll show you later. And I don't quite get this, because you see, a lot of things that might work out of the country does not always work in Malaysia. And if you have a sofa at home, for example, that is always being exposed to the rising sun or the hot afternoon sun, you'll notice that it start to fade after some time. And this is also fabric. And because you're going to be parking it outdoors and such, so I wonder how this is going to stand the test of time. Of course, only time will tell, but I wonder if this will fade under our typical hot, legendary Malaysian sun. So watch out for that. Ask your salesman about that. The answer may probably be, no, it's not going to fade, but we'll see in about 7 to 8 years, I guess. Anyway, besides that, the interior is a cool place to be. The other thing that I think is a bit of an annoyance, for me at least, this is my ramblings, is the location of the door handles. It's just at the bottom over here, together with the door unlock and lock button is just at the bottom over here, and it should be up here, right? Rather than down here. I had some guests that was ferrying around, and they couldn't find the door handle because it's just located out of sight. Anyway, the fabric at the front continues to the side as well, but this is quite normal. It's just that I haven't seen a lot of cars with fabric on the dashboard. Now we go to the back. So let's see. As you can see, it is not that big especially if you're on the taller side of the spectrum. My knees are rubbing up against the front seat. This is adjusted to my sitting position. The backrest is almost vertical, and it's not that comfortable at the back here, particularly if you are quite tall. And do you get a... Let me see if I can... How do I do this? Sorry about that. You don't get a armrest. Anyway, not that great of a place to be in terms of space, but then again, I really like this window at the back over here, because what you sacrifice in leg space, headroom is decent, and because of this back window over here, right at the back here, it lets in a lot of light, and that makes it feel more comfortable. Because imagine if this was just closed off, it'll just be a lot of darkness at the back over here. It makes it feel claustrophobic. But because there's so much light at the back over here, it does not seem that bad of a place to be. I just wouldn't want to spend a lot of time. But if you're looking for a day-to-day car to send your kids to school, pick them back up, go tuition and such, then not too bad. For kids, it's not too bad. One thing I think that is a bit of a missed opportunity for Mini is that it does not come with a frunk. And perhaps it's a packaging thing, perhaps it's because of the design or the size of the car. But then everybody will appreciate more storage space. Unfortunately, with the Aceman, you don't get a forward trunk. Now we're going to drive this car, and I'm really looking forward. I actually really looked forward to driving the Mini, because it's been years since I've drove a Mini. There was a time when Minis were abundant in Malaysia in terms of availability for motoring journos, but it's been a while. And so when the offer came to drive the Aceman, I couldn't say no. Anyway, starting this thing up is quite a interesting thing. You twist this power knob over here, and then you push this gear selector down and such. And I think it was the first generation or second generation of the modern Minis where to start it up you just used to flick the button down, and this is still very interesting, typically Mini. And so over the years, the one thing that Mini has been very consistent about, besides the placement of the instrument cluster, besides the design of their car, and the other thing that they've been really consistent about is their go-kart like handling. And that is something that Mini has been quite proud of over the years, because that is an integral part about the Mini, about Mini's character. So they've always said that their cars handle very well, and it's been true. Over the years, there's one thing that Minis have grown in size, they comes in all shapes and sizes, but all of them handle really well. And the Aceman is no different. You feel so connected to this thing, and it obliges almost everything that you ask for. Just a slight twitch of the steering wheel and it's immediate. The other thing about this is the sounds that it makes in the background. This is typically BMW. For BMW, it is Hans Zimmer. He's an award-winning, I don't know what's the right term, but I'm going to say musician, that has been involved in movies and has also been picked by BMW to create the background sounds for their EVs. So, that sound that you hear, the zing, that is by Hans Zimmer. I wonder if if they got Hans Zimmer to do it for Mini as well. I reckon they probably would. And so how does it feel like? As I've said, it feels very firm. You feel almost everything on the road because of the profile of the tires. The suspension system is all independent, but it's been tuned to be firm, and that's why you feel everything on the road as you would with a regular sports car. And the other thing about the Mini is that because it runs on so low profile tires, 40 profile tires, is that there's not a lot of rubber to absorb any sound that is kicked up by the road. So in that sense, you hear a lot of things back in the cabin of the Aceman, and that will actually just sort of affect the refinement levels here, which is, well, only irritating at higher speeds, but if you're going to be spending a lot of time, in traffic and urban conditions and such, this may not be such an issue. But anything above 110 kilometers per hour, and depending on the surface of the roads that you're traveling on, this may not be such a big issue. Anyway, this sound. This is just so cool. This is so cool. I really like this. Anyway, other than that, the character of the Aceman, well, besides being incredibly fun to drive, because when the roads are right, it can be really fun to drive because it's just so responsive to all of your demands that it's just impossible to not have fun with this, with the Aceman. And the other thing that you should know about the Aceman is that once you get going, it's hard not to enjoy it's difficult not to enjoy the driving experience. So if you can sort of just detune from the refinement levels of the car, which, as I've said, can be a little bit noisy because of the tires, the overall ambience of the car is actually quite nice. Once you get in here, once you have accustomed yourself to all the systems and such, you start to realize that, hey, this is really not a bad car, because that's exactly how I felt after 2 days with the Aceman. And but there are a couple of things that have sort of irritated me, and that particularly is the heads-up display system up ahead. So it's just it's a screen that is just placed at an angle, right? So that's just reflecting whatever needs to be reflected through the heads-up display system. But the thing is, every time you restart the car, you sort of have to readjust the positioning of the heads-up display. But I've read that can be adjusted if you set up a MINI connected profile. So once you set up this profile, it will remember your preferred positions, your preferred sitting position, and all of that. And that is actually quite cool. But that also means that you need to set up a profile. And if you are sharing this car, you can set up different profiles, which again is very cool. And you can also download third-party applications, which again is quite cool. You can download such as YouTube Music. You can download a lot of proprietary and independent applications to make your driving experience a lot better. However, guys, and this is a very big however, if you're on the older side, as I've said, if you're, perhaps above 40 or 50 years old, and you want something more comfortable, the Aceman may not be the car for you, simply because of how jumpy or stiff, firm the suspension is. Now, this you really feel everything. And even though I personally think that it's better to have a firm suspension than a softer one, it's my job to tell you to look out for this. I prefer a firmer suspension because the car obliges to all of your steering inputs a lot quicker, and you don't get that bobble effect that you do with softer suspension. I don't like that. For me, I don't find it a very big deal. It's just that I had my parents in here and such, and you can look at them at the side of your eyes, they're sort of jumping around and such. But when the roads open up like this, you can have some fun, and this is what I really like about the Aceman. See, there's very little body roll. The steering wheel obliges immediately, and because it's an EV, power is delivered immedately as well. 218 PS, you may not think that that's a lot, but that's pretty good. I've also read that the battery and the motor is shared with the other MINI EV models such as the Cooper, and this is quite normal for them to be sharing parts and such, so don't be too afraid of that. That's very normal. That's more of your cost management exercise and such. So now on these open roads here in Putrajaya, I'm doing about just a tad under 100 kilometers per hour. The road conditions are changing between smooth and not so smooth, and if you've noticed, I'm still speaking to you in the normal tone, in a normal voice. So this basically just means that refinement levels are acceptable, but as soon as you get higher past 110, 120, you get a lot of wind and tire rod that comes back into the cabin. So look out for that. If you want something that is quiet and refined, this is something that you need to look out for. But if you want something that is fun to drive, quirky, it has a nice sound system, a wonderful infotainment system that sometimes tends to lag, but that's okay. You learn to live with it. I find it a little bit irritating, but it only seems to happen once in a while. Maybe it can be fixed with just a simple software update, I'm not sure, but it's just something for you to look out for as well. If you have the current generation Cooper or Countryman, they have the same system, and if you experience this, let me know in the comment section below and share with everybody if it's still something that persists or something that has been fixed. I think that would be interesting to know. Anyway, the Aceman also has a one pedal drive mode, so to speak, so you can turn it into battery mode, and you get 3 different levels of regenerative braking, and you can basically drive this car without actually using the brake pedal. So you just lift off the accelerator pedal and it'll brake and regenerate the batteries at the same time. I actually quite like this, driving the car in this mode. So it lets you learn to be smooth with it. Once you learn to be smooth with it, it makes a lot of sense. So that's something that I quite like as well. Oh, rumble strips and you feel everything. Typical Mini. Not a bad thing lah. I actually quite enjoy it. But would I enjoy it on a day-to-day basis? Not so sure. So the Aceman is definitely a very nice car, and I know a lot of people that aspire to own a Mini, and I just got to put this out there that you got to look out for a couple of things if you are interested in the Aceman. For example, the ride quality may not be for everyone. If you are the type that likes a sporty drive, you're going to like how connected it feels and how responsive it is. But the ride quality is quite firm, and that means that you will feel every little patch on the road. So in terms of comfort, it may not be for everyone, particularly if you have a back problem or if you're on the, if you're aged, basically, to be polite. And the other thing that you need to look out for is that if you need space, then the Aceman would probably be not the model that you would like to go for. Check out the Countryman. And in my opinion, I think for this price, the Volvo EX30 is probably another model to look out for. It's good looking. It's a little bit more simplistic than the Aceman. Of course, it's not as quirky. And the ride quality of the Volvo, for example, is actually a little bit more plush, a little bit more comfortable than the one that you'll get on the MINI Aceman S. But then again, I don't know that many people that aspire to own a Volvo. The Mini, on the other hand, it's stylish, it's good looking, and it'll definitely get you the eyeballs. In that sense, the MINI Aceman is definitely a great car. Also, another thing to look out for, you're not going to go very far with the MINI Aceman S. But then again, it's a really good looking machine. Thank you for watching, guys. As always, do consider subscribing.